first genius idea was becoming a bookie in college. Second genius idea I had was let me quote unquote borrow money from Alanis, which translation means steal or embezzle, with the intent that I'll pay it back. I mean, I should have, could have, but did not take the money from my own account. Because at that point, I was making seven figures a year. There was no reason why I couldn't pay that debt. Had I done that, had I had the courage to do that, things would have been very different.
What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassity. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right, welcome back. Nightmare Success In and Out. Listeners, this is where you come from. What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Folks, I know I sound like a broken record, but don't forget to follow, subscribe, share this thing out, like it up, comment. It really helps the show, and I very much appreciate it. So, who are we talking to today on Nightmare Success? Well, we're talking to Jonathan Schwartz, and man, does he have one interesting story. A little bit about his story. This is a story about what happens when you're trusted with the fortunes of global superstars, living in the inner circle of fame and power, and you lose everything. Jonathan Schwartz was known in Hollywood by many as the Diva Whisperer. He managed the money of icons like Beyoncé, Mariah Carey, Alanis Morissette. But behind the scenes, Jonathan was living a secret life that was spiraling out of control with cocaine and gambling addiction. Consumed by his habit, Jonathan began to embezzle millions from his celebrity clients to support his addiction. His world collapsed, his reputation shattered, all leading to a 6-year prison sentence. But here's the story that turns. Jonathan is now 9 years sober. He's now serving as a program director at Atlas. No, it's Atlas. I said it wrong. And when I was talking to Jonathan here, it's ATLUS, I think, and I just can't say it. But Rehab. He's helping others fight the demons that nearly destroyed him. I can't wait to jump in all this, but I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. You know, who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots looking for a car? Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. It's the new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Folks, I want to share with you a powerful and moving new book you won't want to miss. My Name is Saffron. Voices, silenced, stifled, and taken away by author Saffron Gustafson. This isn't just a story. It's a journey through resilience, survival, and reclaiming your voice after being silenced for far too long. Saffron's story takes you inside the hidden struggles, the pain, and ultimately the triumph of refusing to be defined by circumstances. As Saffron was putting the finishing touches on her book, the prison she had just been released from, Federal Dublin FCI, was permanently closed because of sexual abuse of the women prisoners. If you've ever wondered what it takes to rise from the darkness of places, to find your truth, and to speak it boldly, this book will inspire you. Pick up your copy of My Name is Saffron today, available now on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Trust me, you'll be moved, challenged, and changed by her story. Jonathan Schwartz, welcome in. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for quite the introduction. So it's ALTUS, Altus Rehab.
That's why I'm saying it wrong. I've got it written down wrong.
It's okay. A lot of people do. And then
so it's ALTUS.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm saying it wrong because I have it written down wrong. So, but that's not anything unusual with Brent Cassity. My whole family, when I mispronounce things, they know approximately what I'm saying, but then, it's like always wrong. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a tiny bit. And I'll be 10 years sober in May.
Wow. That's right. Coming up. What is that? 2 or 3 months?
One day at a time. Yeah.
One day at a time. Well, I know just from listening and reading some of the other stuff, your childhood had um, addiction in it, and your dad was someone that carried that. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Jonathan? Growing up, what your life, where you grew up, and your mom, dad, how was all that?
Yeah, so my father left the home when I was 4 years old, and my mom was forced to take, as a young parent, she really wasn't even ready for motherhood, let alone being a single mom. And so, that was tough. My mom was stressed. She did the best she could to put a roof over her head, food on the table, as I often say, and clothes. My father was absent, and he was in the world of doing, you know, criminal behavior. Frankly, he was just fortunate enough not to get caught. But he was a gambling addict and a cocaine addict, and I never wanted to be like him. But to be honest, I became much worse than him. I
Did
don't
you
make
have a
excuses.
relationship with him? Was there like, I mean, if he left at 4 years old, was it something where it was shared custody and you went back and forth, or how was that as a kid?
So no, it was not. There was no shared custody. I saw him maybe when I was a teenager, probably around
Okay.
10, 11, pre-call at my bar mitzvah, which, he participated in. And then after that, it was maybe talking to him on the phone a few times a month. Uh, I did live with him when I was in San Francisco area with my mother, living with my mother, and I wanted to go back to New York where I grew up in the Catskills and finish my senior year of high school with all my friends from childhood. And so I called my father and I asked him if he'd be willing to move up to the Catskills so I can complete. He was living at this point in Lower East Side of Manhattan, and he said yes. So I moved in with him. There was no discipline. I would walk in, there's him with coke women that, I don't want to use that word on your podcast, but not healthy thing to see for even a 17-year-old as a senior in
What
high
do you think of
school.
that though? Like, Jonathan, seeing that type of situation as a kid, 17 years old, what was going through your mind? Because you're trying to get through high school, you're looking, to graduate, and then you see also you're living with this craziness. What were you thinking?
I was thinking I was going to come home, honestly, and I didn't expect the discipline, which I just said was absent, but I expected to come to a safe environment where I can bring my high school sweetheart, which ultimately became my wife of 23 years. That's not what I saw. I don't recall too much. I suppressed a lot of those emotions.
Hmm.
One thing I'll never forget is, he tried to buy my love through material items. So I had a cool car when I was a senior in high school that he bought.
Hmm.
And I remember pulling up with my girlfriend and into the driveway, and two of his bodyguards coming outdoor with large sums of cocaine and saying to me, "You have to put this down your pants right now and get out of here because the FBI is watching your father's home."
Mm.
That was like, I couldn't believe it. That certainly wasn't something at 17 years old I should have been exposed to. Uh, that was my father, and he passed away. So from there, we really didn't have a relationship. When I traveled to New York from LA in my former career, I would call up my best friend Mark and say, "Mark, can you meet? I want to see my dad, but can you please accompany me? Let's go grab a quick bagel. Let's spend 45 minutes with him." I'd have
Mhm.
to give him money because he lost all of his money gambling. And so I would give him money. That's when I had money. And it was, surface like. It wasn't real substantive dialogue. Um, when I got in trouble, he passed away in February of 2017. At that point, I was on pre-sentencing and I wasn't allowed to go to his funeral. To be honest, I miss him now more than now that he's passed
Mhm.
away than when he was alive. So I do think about him a lot. I wish perhaps I could have been more mature as a young 17, 18-year-old and even into my 20s and 30s and accepted him for who he was and to try and rekindle our relationship. I didn't do that. I don't carry that guilt and shame. I don't live in resentments, but there's some songs I love listening to that remind me of
Mhm.
my father. And, unfortunately, I was prohibited from traveling to the funeral, but that's just one of the million consequences of those poor choices that I've
There
made.
there are so many consequences. Uh So you get out of high school. What happens? What's your next step that happens after that?
My next step was neither my mother nor my father knew how to guide me as to what I should do upon graduation. So I took it upon myself. My friends were going to various colleges. So I decided to go to my first of three colleges, but taking out FAFSA loans. I went to CW Post in Long Island my freshman year. I did really well academically. I wasn't a great student in high school, but I really studied accounting. And from there, Mark, my best friend, he was in college in Boston. And he said, "Why don't we transfer to SUNY Albany?" And we both transferred for our sophomore year to SUNY Albany, which is a great accounting school. And that's where I started to get in trouble a little bit. My junior year, first semester, I couldn't socialize with my friends, my fraternity brothers, because they came from affluent families and I came from a fairly poor family. And I wanted to socialize. I wanted to go out to the bar with them. I wanted to go pick up, girls and just do what, respectfully, not disrespectfully, of course, and just have fun like everyone else is having fun. And I couldn't do it, so I came up with this idea: let me become a bookie with another fraternity brother within the Greek system. And we knew nothing about being bookies, but we lost $10,000 in the first 2 weeks. Bookies don't lose, but we, of course, lost. And you know, uh, that was like my first entree into, call it, the arena of gambling.
That
We
is interesting that you got into that because I I went to University of Missouri and there was always one guy that was in the Greek town that covered. Well, he probably this guy probably covered all the University of Missouri, but man, he was college rich. He was a good bookie. I mean, he had figured it out. It's funny that you say that you guys lost money being bookies.
um, it was terrible, and it was a lot of money at the time. It was $10,000. We were both
Yeah.
responsible for half of it. And that was also the first time that I abandoned a friend. Like, my fraternity brother was a sweetheart, and I left school to escape that $5,000 obligation. And I transferred to San Francisco State because that's where my mother and my stepfather were living.
Okay.
And I tried to make amends with this fraternity brother vis-a-vis Facebook when I returned into society in 2020. And I'll never forget. And I understand his response. His response was, "I hope you die from cancer. Don't
Oh
ever reach
man.
out to me again." But he's right. He had to take on the responsibility. And
Yeah.
the truth is, I should have paid him back 20 years ago when I had the money, and it didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah.
So, I don't, when you make amends, it's not for purposes of forgiveness. It's so that that's what's healthy for you, me, and you don't have any expectations on how the recipient is going to respond. And in this case, I was hoping it was a little different, but I can respect his position.
Well, and I think it's, so you get back from you've skipped from New York all the way back over to San Francisco. Um, and I always think that when you when you're looking at this type of story, I mean, you took accounting, CPA, but you became one of the top five, business managers in a world where there was lots of money. How did that come to you? Like, what were the steps that happened? How does someone do that and go that path?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I had seven CPAs in my family, so I knew I was destined. They were
It's
cousins.
in your blood.
It's in my blood.
Okay.
It was the only subject that I actually took interest in and did fairly well. So one of them worked in the entertainment space. He was a well-respected music specialist in the entertainment world as a business manager. So at barbecues when I was younger, he'd say, "You come work for me. You come work for me." So when I graduated at SF State, and I called him up and I said, "Cuz, I'm ready to come work for you down in LA." He said, "No, you're not. You're immature. You're irresponsible. What do you know about business management? I really recommend that you go work for a public accounting firm and hone your analytical skills." And I'm like, "Gosh, okay." So I got a job. I worked for a sole practitioner in the financial district of San Francisco for about 3.5 years. And then I received a phone call from that cousin and he said, "You're ready to come work for me." So at this stage of my life, I was married and we had our first of three adult sons. So we got in our little Honda Accord and we drove down south, and that was my, entree into the entertainment space from a business management perspective.
So, Jonathan, when you pack up, you move, you're young, your cousin's got some things that he's got a world that you would like to be, a part of and get big in. Was it hard to get started? Was it something that you felt like, no, I'm made for this? Like, how did it all start for you?
I'm excited about the opportunity because we wanted to have more kids. Working in the financial district, I was making an accountant salary, but San Francisco, all of California for the most part, is very expensive. So I was excited about the opportunity to maybe, have a career path. I didn't want to stay in accounting,
Mhm.
doing preparing taxes, and that wasn't really sexy to me.
Right.
But working in the entertainment as a business manager, there's so many responsibilities, and so I just wanted to, walk in on day one and become a sponge and learn and have him as my mentor and learn everything that I possibly could from him and his staff. And so I spent a lot of time in the file room, the mail room, and I read countless files on, each client and what we did for that client and how do you prepare this type of Excel spreadsheet and how do you prepare this presentation. And I did a lot of observation. Had at that point no client contact. It was just doing a lot of traditional accounting work, and I was learning how to do that, learning how to prepare tour budgets, learning how to understand the royalty streams, learning how to understand merchandising, and various things that artists in the music business receive as in terms of revenue streams, and so how to budget, a wealthy person, a high net worth. And I really learned a lot. I worked there for about 3.5, 4 years. At the end of 1999, his firm was acquired by Chase Manhattan Bank, now known as JP Morgan. And he asked me if I
Mhm.
wanted to get into family wealth management, investment banking. I said, "Cuz I love you. Thank you for the opportunity that you gave me and the family. But
Yeah.
with your blessing, really, like with your blessing, I'd like to take a small book of business and join another firm." So he gave me his blessing. He allowed me to take a handful of, B-level clients, not big. I wasn't experienced enough to have A-listers at this point.
Mhm.
And I called up this guy that all my cousins knew. He had a very successful business management firm. It was called GSO Business Management. His name was Michael Oppenheim, and Michael was becoming my new mentor. He passed away a couple years ago. May he rest in peace. My partners were great to me. I wasn't a partner when I started working for him. That night, he took me out to dinner and we cut a deal. And I came in there with that small book of business. I was a business manager, but not a partner. It took years before I became a partner, and I was off to the races, And I got a lucky break with a band called Linkin Park,
Mhm.
and they hired the firm, and I was the lead partner that worked on them and individually and collectively, and they had really high expectations, like all celebrities should, when it
Mhm.
comes to their business management. And those I wanted to exceed those expectations, so I worked really hard. Pre my addiction and pre my poor choices, I was really good at what I did. I enjoyed working with all of my clients, and I was lucky to have great clients. And
Well, you had some big clients. I wonder, like, is it like any other business, Jonathan, with you get something, a big break like that? Does the word get around? How do you get to an Alanis Morissette or a Beyoncé? Like, how do you grow your business to because that's you're in a field where it's so personal and you are more or less handling all the things that they make. And how does it evolve? How does it
yeah,
happen?
yeah. So it happens when a band, when they see that Linkin Park is so successful, it really the one that deserves the credit is Linkin Park, right? But
Okay.
they start to ask. So like personal managers, agents, entertainment lawyers, they start to ask, well, who's their team that's working with them? And when they
Mhm.
find out or found out that, I was their business manager, my assistant was getting call after call. Can we take Jonathan to lunch? Can we take him to dinner? Can we schmooze? And that's okay because, you know, I wasn't a big schmoozer, but that's an important way to build your network. and to get referrals and also to give referrals. I was not the type of guy though, is if you give me a referral, I don't believe there's reciprocity that's necessary. If you're the right fit for my client, then yes, of course I'll refer to you. But if you're not the right fit, I'm not going to ask my client to take a meeting with you. And I was transparent with that. And so that is the lucky break that I had. It expanded the network for me and allowed me to get some great referrals subsequent to working with Lincoln Park, including Alanis and many other beautiful clients that I was frankly blessed to have. They were wonderful people. The direct victims certainly didn't deserve what I did, and the indirect victims didn't deserve the embarrassment that I brought to the entertainment space.
And yeah, and if you do a good job, I think if I remember right, just because of some books I've read, that a business manager works off a percentage of sometimes gross, sometimes no, whatever that is, and if they do better, then maybe there's a different structure. But so when you get into these big clients, I mean, you are also doing well. Let's get into the craziness. So, I mean, you've got this life going on. You're kind of like the guy that is starting to be sought after. You're growing a family. How does the craziness start?
The craziness started in this crazy brain of mine. I was coaching my kids in youth sports, and this assistant coach, I think it was my middle son's team, asked me one day if I wanted to gamble, and I said, "Sure, I'll place a small bet." And that small bet led to losing week one and not being able to pay back. So the first genius idea was becoming a bookie in college. The second genius idea I had was let me quote unquote borrow money from Alanis, which translation means steal or embezzle, with the intent that I'll pay it back. I mean, I should have, could have, but did not take the money from my own account because at that point I was making seven figures a year. There was no reason why I couldn't pay that debt. Had I done that, had I had the courage to do that, things would have been very different. But um, gambling is a progressive disease. And so that led to 6 years every day gambling on sports. And it was the worst 6 years of my life because I was
It's so
violating.
interesting that how you fell into that because it's something you talked about with your dad in
Yeah.
that world of gambling. And I think some people have, most people have obsessive traits, but they can use it in different lanes. Did you know? Because, like you said, you could have paid this. It was probably easier because you had all these accounts um, to cover your bets on your own, but you didn't. When was it that you were? Did you start thinking, "Shit, I've got, I've got some issues here. What am I doing?" Because betting can, I mean, there's so many levels of betting that you can do. You can go the spread. You go all the different ways of now they've got it to, how many times the guy catches a ball. But um, how far into this? You said 6 years, but how far into it did you feel like, uh-oh, I'm doing something? And I know that you've said that your wife and nobody knew that you were doing this. This is your lane on your own, doing this in a secret world, and then over here you're operating as Jonathan Schwartz, the guru.
Yeah, it's like they say in the AA book, right? I put up a facade to the outer world. I presented that I was this successful man, all put together, but deep down inside, I was insecure, committing a white collar crime, holding that dark secret to myself, and not being able to sleep for 6 years, and just looking at myself in the mirror and felt disgusting, like looked disgusted, excuse me, looking at myself and believing that a guy in myself who thought I had a moral compass really didn't have a moral compass. I dropped that. I had no integrity. I thought I did. And so, I was beating myself up every day. And, toward the tail end of that 6 year run, I started to become addicted to cocaine. And, the cocaine really, sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, with the cocaine, I'm guessing, was probably a relief valve of the stress that you were creating in your. I mean, you're in the fast lane. Now you're gonna even speed it up even more with covering it with the feel of cocaine.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have coronary artery disease. So doing cocaine and waking up with my sheets soaked, sweating, and heart rate racing, a lot of the professionals that evaluated me once I got caught suggested that you were likely trying to subconsciously kill yourself, and frankly, I was. It was dark. I couldn't believe what I was doing, and hiding it even made it worse. And the truth is, I had a support group that if I had the courage to ask for help, things would have been very different.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that people, they're afraid to ask for help, so they stay on an island trapped. And if they're talking to somebody, they're like, "Hey, you know, whether it be Mark, your best friend, or whoever, you know, I'm freaking out. What should I do?" And that might have been the thing that got you back on track, but that didn't happen. Were you when you were presenting, I'm sure you presented, you know, monthly or quarterly or whatever to your clients. They ever figure out or ask you weird questions?
So, the five clients, I mean, I had like 20 plus clients. So, like the five of them that I embezzled from, each one different amounts. Let's talk about Alanis. That's the only one that I'll talk publicly about, I say, because she became public with it. She showed up in my sentencing and spoke eloquently. If I was the judge, I would have given myself life. She was, she had a right to be there. When I went to meet with her, she was meeting with about to pitch, myself as her business manager. The irony behind that, and no pun intended with her song Ironic, is I came with visual aids.
Mhm.
Here's what I'm going to give you. Here's when you're going to go on tour. Here's what a tour budget looks like. Here's what your personal budget looks like. Here's the risk management responsibilities we have to mitigate any litigation or liability. Here's how we prepare your taxes. Here's how we provide you with royalty accounting. And it was, frankly, it was impressive enough. And the reason she hired me was I was the only one that brought visual aids.
Mhm.
Now, fast forward, I'm in my active addiction. I'm gambling. I'm embezzling from her. Every month, I would go to her house and present to her cockamamie spreadsheets that, had she asked just one time, can you show me the bank statements so I can see and reconcile what you're presenting me on an Excel spreadsheet? I would have been caught right then and there. So every time I went there, I had this fear that she would ask me. And I wish she did in hindsight, right? It would have helped because I still didn't have the courage because of my ego to ask for that help. But
Personal life, Jonathan, with your wife and kids, like, how is that lane going with this craziness that's going on in your secret world?
I thought I was a good father. I thought I was a great father to three kids and coached their youth sports. But the truth is, once I became involved in active addiction for 6 years, I was not emotionally present, but I didn't recognize that during that period of time. So I wasn't a great father as much as I would have liked to viewed myself as one. The truth is, I was physically present, but not emotionally present. Because I'm watching the scores in the dugout as I'm coaching the youth, the kids. Um, Created a sports room so that the kids can come watch with daddy all the games every day. And I didn't just bet on a game like who's going to win. I bet teasers, parlays, first halves. I was a complete degenerate, and I bet on the whole board. I didn't just pick one game. I bet on every game humanly possible. It was I had to hide, my emotions when the kids were in there.
Yeah.
I would jump for joy when it was going my way, but then when it didn't, I would just be like numb and not let them see that. But unfortunately, I wasn't the father that I thought I was. I'm still trying to earn back the trust of, I have three beautiful boys, my middle son, and it's been over 10 years. But you know what? In recovery, and I have a strong recovery, I accept that I hurt him and hurt all the kids,
Mhm.
and it doesn't happen on my timeline. It's going to
Right.
happen when my higher power brings my son back into my life, and my biggest joy will be when I'm under the same roof as my three children. I miss him. I love him. I speak with my younger son every day. I speak to my older son a few times a year. I see him in person. And these are, again, we talk about consequences. Like, there's nobody to blame but me. and I take full responsibility for rupturing my family's dynamics, hurting my ex-wife, infidelity. I was definitely not a good husband. She deserved a much better person than me. And I wasn't proud of it. And it's the ripple effect really impacted my family and a lot of other people.
So when does the nightmare land on you? When it's like, oh, that's the call.
So I am in Santa Barbara with my ex-wife, at the time my wife. We were supposed to be celebrating our 23-year anniversary. We had some separation during, I would say, the few years before that. But at this hotel we were celebrating, I received a call from Mike Oppenheim, and he said, we'd like you to come down to Beverly Hills and take a lie detector test. Because I told them I would. I was trying to play poker with them, but unfortunately they accepted my invitation. And so I learned about it by a phone call. And I answered the call and I said, well, I'm celebrating my anniversary. And they're like, you need to come down and meet this former FBI agent's top polygrapher. So I decided, this is probably, I don't even know what number of genius ideas I've had shared with you so far, but call this another genius idea. I decided to Google how to beat a lie detector test. Now, mind
Okay.
you, I'm doing countless lines of cocaine. I'm placing bets, and
That can't be a good combination.
it can't be a good
Right before
combination.
you do a lie detector test. Because if
Well,
anything, that amps you up to to another level.
well, that was the night I was Googling. So the worse than that is I took a whole bunch of cocaine with me on the drive down to the lie detector
Okay.
test, which happened to be, I believe, May 8th, 2016, because my sober date is May 9th. And on May 8th, making my last bet to my bookie, doing lines for the last time, I get to the polygrapher's office. I'm completely arrogant because I, of course, researched it on Google and put my feet up on his desk like a big shot. And I'm establishing this wonderful rapport with him. What I forgot to read with it on Google is it's his responsibility to establish a
To
rapport.
create the rapport.
Here I
Exactly.
am thinking I got this. I'm going to beat
I'm
this
killing
test.
this.
This guy
Yeah.
loves me. So, long story short, I called my attorney when I returned back after the test to the hotel, and I learned that I failed the test worse than anybody in this polygrapher's career. And so that was that moment where reality set in. And my attorney said, you need to come see me tomorrow and we need to figure out a strategy. And I had a great attorney. He's now the district attorney of Los Angeles, Mr. Nathan Hochman, and he worked out a plea agreement for 4 to 6 years. Um, I I thought I was going to get 23. I was happy with the plea agreement, but you know as well as I do that when you walk in on sentencing, the judge has a right to deviate up or down. And
Absolutely.
and the prosecution team, excuse me, was asking for 5 years. The judge gave me 6, and the judge could have given me much more. In fact, when she went to her chambers, she kind of alluded to the fact that she was going to give me 10 or more years. And so I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful today and to the judge for giving me the 6 years. I deserved it. I deserved everything that the judge said, and everything that I did deserved the consequences that I received.
Well, let's take a break here because I want to talk about what happens on that next step because what you just led up to is everything that you knew to that point. You're going into the unknown world, someplace you never thought you were going to be. I want to talk about how you stepped into that world. But before we do, a lot of people don't like how they show up online. Many individuals think there's no hope when it comes to managing your reputation on Google. There is hope. It's called the Discoverability Company, and they can help you. Whether you're building your reputation from scratch or repairing your search results after a negative news story, Discoverability can also help you how you're portrayed on popular AI services like ChatGPT. To learn more, visit discoverability.co. It's not .com. Listeners of Nightmare Success can take $100 off with coupon code Nightmare Success. And the Nightmare Success podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group, the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you that this is a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice journey for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is a great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to prisonist.org. It's prisonist.org. Okay, Jonathan, so you get this sentence. You get 6 years. That's not a small sentence. Obviously, like you said, you could have gotten 23. That was, these guidelines are crazy. Sometimes they can stack charges and they're killed 20 years at a time in the federal system. So you look at hundreds of years. But when you get there, do you voluntarily surrender or okay? So you're not immediately remanded. You voluntarily surrender. You show up. What's going through your mind on how am I going to handle this? Because now you're sober,
Right.
so you're walking into prison, federal prison sober. What's going through your mind on what's my next step? How am I going to handle this?
So I was I was like quasi prepared in the sense that I hired a prison consultant to kind of help me
Walk you through.
understand. Yeah, am I going to be raped in prison? My sons were worried.
Mhm.
And I wanted him really, I hired him really to share with my boys that this is what Dad was going to go through. He said, federal camp, he's going to be safe as long as he keeps his head down and minds his P's and Q's and just, focused on healing. And so I knew that my kids were at least temporarily okay with that. And so the judge allowed me to spend 2 months after sentencing at home, and I was able to spend quality time with my youngest son. He was going off to camp, and that was really something important to me.
Mhm.
And so when I surrendered on July 11th of 2017, uh, you never know when you surrender if they're going to keep you in a holding cell for X period of time because they're
That's
they're
right.
they're doing all the paperwork. So when they put me in that cell,
Well, and I
I
think some of it's just to mess with you. I've thought through that. Like when I went in, and they just put me in this cell, and like at Leavenworth, there's the penitentiary and there was the camp, and so your first thought is well, I wonder if they know I'm not supposed to be here, and then what does that sound like? I'm knocking on the cell door, say, hey, actually, I'm not supposed to be here. That doesn't work. But they put you in there for a few hours just to, I think, mess with you on the fact that this is something you have no control over. Your control has left the building, and whatever is happening now, who knows? I didn't
right.
know if I was going to be there for a few hours or probably was going to be there locked up because they made a mistake. So you get in there, you get in the cell, and walk us through,
Yeah,
Jonathan.
so then they put you in they processed me, and um, I was fortunate enough to be able to walk down to the camp, maybe after like 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who the newbies are because you're wearing your orange Crocs and your green
Hmm.
uniform, which they wear their greens, but the orange Crocs gives it away. I was fortunate enough that the prison consultant I retained also had a few people at the prison, so he
Okay.
contacted one of my dearest friends from prison, his wife, to get a message to him when she visits that Jonathan is coming on this day. Please be on the lookout for him. Thankfully, he was on the lookout for me, and I'm forever grateful to him because he guided me for many months. First of all, after 6 months of crying every day, he said, "You got to stop crying. Stop counting your days." So I started counting the Super Bowls. He got me a great job in education. He got me a great job working up where the CEOs work
Hmm.
as a barista. And so,
Which I think is, I don't want to gloss over that. I think that's a big tip for prison, for people that are listening to this that are thinking, or they're in the throes of going to prison. Really try as much as you can to kill your time finding a good job, something that you can kill your time with. Because a lot of guys, they'll go do that kitchen job, it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, and then they've got the whole day to be stuck in time. Whereas if you can get a something, I worked at the food warehouse, so I got forklift certified. I was the clerk, and it actually kind of kept me engaged, my mind.
right,
And my thing, and I'm sure yours too was, Jonathan, is I had this fear of like, I don't want to become prison Brent. And I don't know what prison Brent is. I guess it's that institutionalized guy that I'm scared of. But uh, I think what you just said there is a really good tip for people. You found things to, uh, because the opportunities are there if you work towards them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And listen, I would have taken any job, but I'm glad that I got the education job. It made my life a little easier. It allowed me to meet all inmates because they wanted to use the computer, and there was a huge waiting list. So I really got to know all the inmates. I mean, I was with about 450 plus inmates, uh, and I got to do so many things. I got to teach accounting at night. I got to attend classes. There were a lot of smarter people than me there that I was able to learn from. I ran a victim impact program, which was really rewarding. I worked with the CEO responsible for that, where every, few weeks, I think it was 7+ weeks, we would have a new set of about 7, 8 guys that participated in this. They got credit for participating in it. And my role was to help them see that they have victims as a result of their crime or other poor
Mhm.
choices, and to make amends to those victims. And it was really rewarding because I would hear these same guys on the phone with their wives, or girlfriends or baby mamas, using the F bomb and talking disrespectfully to them. And after a few weeks of taking this course, I would hear a whole different person saying, "Honey, thank you for taking care of our children while I'm here. I love you. I'm sorry for the way I used to talk to you." Because they could start to recognize their victims. And that was a beautiful and rewarding way of me being of service in prison. And listen,
I like that.
yeah, I read a lot
I
of
had to, I mean, it
books.
had to be rewarding for you because, um, finding something in the prison, giving back, it makes you feel because you're in a bad place. So if you can make yourself feel better by helping other people, that's a big deal.
It was a big deal, and it gave me an opportunity to really learn who a person is. I didn't go there judgmental,
Yeah.
but did I judge people? Yes. Did I
Mhm.
judge a book by its cover? Yes. And what I learned in prison is if you take the time to get to know everybody from different socioeconomic statuses to different races or religions or color, if you really take the time to get to know them as I did, at their core they have the same values, not the
Yeah.
values that I utilized during my criminal behavior, but the values, pre and
Right.
post being including, prison. They have kids at home. They worry about how their kids are going to be fed by their baby mama, and and they're drug dealers. And I'd ask the drug dealers when they go home, are they going to continue to do that? And they said, if that's what it takes me to put food on the table for the kids, then I'm going to do it. My response was, but they're doing it now without you doing that. And I would
Mhm.
try and encourage them to try and get, even if it's McDonald's, just go get a job that's legal. You can provide that way for your family. But my point is that when I really got along with most every inmate.
I think that's was one of the biggest things that was a shock to me was how many good people that I ran across in prison. Because it wasn't my thought going in. My thought was, is am I gonna get raped? Am I gonna get in a lot of fights? Am I gonna whatever those things are that you see on TV and whatever. And I was my situation was a lot like yours, Jonathan, is a lot of people helped me when I got there. And then I found people that I would have never have met in my life. And we all got along.
Yeah, yeah. And I speak to at least 3 to 5 guys, not all the time, but the one in particular that helped me. I see him a lot. He's up in Sacramento. I'm here in LA. Him and his wife. He's got a beautiful family, and those are the people that I consider quality friends today.
Yeah. So I know your case got a good amount of publicity. What were you thinking as you were getting closer towards getting out? What were your thoughts about re-entering? Because re-entering is not easy.
Yeah, I thought I would have to stay at a halfway house, but I was fortunate enough that the government let me do 16 months of home confinement with an ankle monitor.
Mhm.
That was almost worse than prison because you're limited to your movement. So, the Jewish hypochondriac that I am, I tried to take advantage of booking medical appointment after medical appointment because that was my excuse and approval to go to my doctors. You're allowed to go grocery shopping once, maybe twice a week at best. You get to go to a job. Outside that, you can't move. And again, I'd rather be on home confinement on an ankle monitor than being in the halfway house at that point. Re-entering society was very challenging for me. I was broke. It was during COVID. I received some COVID rental relief, which was really necessary for me to pay for my studio apartment. My mom and stepfather helped me. Um, I was blessed because if not for my mom and stepdad, to be honest, I probably would have been on the streets homeless.
Yeah.
Um, and I was prepared for that. And I'm glad that, fortunately for me, I hate to say this, but because of COVID, I was able to have this studio apartment along with the help of my mom and stepdad. And it was hard getting a job. I'm a felon. I'm still a felon. I will always be labeled a felon. And
Mhm. It's a life sentence.
it's a life sentence, and that's okay. But I thought it would be easier to reintegrate into society, but I faced a lot of challenges, and whether it was financial challenges or work challenges, I got fired from one job and another job with the Department of Motor Vehicles. I was working as a salesperson I know nothing about cars, and I was doing a good job. I was being really honest. I was still very much immersed in the 12 step, practicing rigorous honesty. As an auto salesperson, I would say, look the customer in the eye and say, I'm giving you the best price. And I was,
Mhm.
because they were working with a company called True Car, and True Car has the best pricing. So I said, go tell my manager that you got the pricing from True Car. It'll be the best deal that this dealership can give you. And that was the truth. And
Mhm.
I received a provisional license. So in California, as an auto salesperson, they give you this provisional license for 3 to 4 months. After they do a background search, you're either approved or you're not. So I'm sorry, 3 to 4 months. So after about 3 months, I get a letter that because of my background, I'm not allowed to work. And so I decided that I was going to,
Which is, I think this is something, a topic that it comes up a lot, but it's, the barriers you would expect to run against from somebody who has a private business. I'm just not going to hire an ex-felon. I'm not going to hire a felon. I'm not going to hire somebody with a record, and it's legal. It's legal to discriminate. What I find fascinating is that the government actually discriminates when licensing comes with what you're talking about, Jonathan, or if you wanted to get an insurance, or if you want to get a real estate license, or if you want to get a barber license, all these different things. That's the state saying, no, you're not done. There's no period on the end of this sentence. And uh, I don't know, I work with reentry stuff all the time. It's getting better, but man, it's a big mountain hurdle because in your case, you're one of the top 5 guys in Hollywood managing millions of dollars, and, uh, you are having a hard time just finding a job that will accept you. And by the way, you did get fired from Dunkin' Donuts. I didn't know if you were gonna bring that up. I find that funny just because you you didn't really like working at Dunkin' Donuts. I think you were kinda ready to get let go there.
I think so. No, but to your point, like I was well educated, right? And I thought it would be easier to transition than it really was. But honestly, what happened with this auto salesperson, in short, I'll give you the quick version. I decided to make an appeal and represent myself on Zoom. So there was this judge and a head lawyer from the Department of Motor Vehicles. The judge said, Jonathan, I've never seen or received so many rehabilitation letters, character reference letters from esteemed people, respectful
Mhm.
professionals, and I see no reason why you can't continue. It's not like you're going to work in the finance department and you're having to deal with money. You're an auto salesperson. You don't put the contracts together. So I'm thinking, okay, she'll render a decision that I can go back to work. And so this Department of Motor Vehicles guy gets on involved, inserts himself, and I'll never forget this. He said, Your Honor, auto salespeople is the number one profession filled with people of integrity. So therefore, I don't want to give Jonathan the right to work. And I'm thinking to myself, and for anyone out there that's an auto salesperson, no disrespect intended, but it's absolutely not the number one profession with a makeup of people with integrity. It doesn't mean there's not a lot of auto salespeople that do, but
Right.
I was one that really, as I said earlier, and so that was like my breaking point where I prayed to my higher power, I surrendered to my higher power, and my higher power said, Schmuck, I need you to go to addiction studies school, get your KDAC. I want you to go to grad school, become an MFT to specialize in addiction and trauma so you can help your brothers and sisters. And that's what I needed. And today that's what I do. And that, much like the joy I mentioned with the victim impact in prison, in the real world, this is the greatest career I've ever entered into. I'm able to help countless men and women who struggle with addiction, mental health, and trauma, and just be there as the most empathetic human, and help them in any way I can. As I said earlier, I make very little money, but this is not about money. This is about what brings me joy inside my soul, what I'm passionate about. And yeah, do I struggle today financially? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I don't struggle with wanting to help people and them allowing me the privilege to work with them.
Well, I think it's great that they took an opportunity, gave you an opportunity, because I think the type of work that you're doing, Jonathan, all that you went through and how it humbled you and brought you to where you are, what a help you can be to people who are struggling. Because, you know, when you hit rock bottom, it's a binary choice. You either stay there or you get up. And you got up, and you can show people ways to get up because you had to get up. You didn't stay there. So I think it's absolutely fabulous. How did you get that job? Because, or how, the other question I was going to ask, how long did it take you to get educated up to the point where you were going to go out and get this job?
Yeah, so the KDAC wasn't that hard to get. Just like 7 months of addiction studies, then you have to earn some hours. The grad school took about 2 years. Uh,
Okay.
but it was funny because I was the oldest one, obviously, at this point in grad school. And but I also took it serious. Like I didn't
Yeah.
take high school or undergrad serious. Like I really wanted to learn again. Like not like I talked about with my cousin, but just
Yeah.
I wanted to really be a good student. And because if I wasn't a good student, how would I become a good therapist?
Hmm.
And so I really worked hard in school. I learned a lot, and I had this beautiful woman at Altus Rehab who owns the place give me a chance, despite being a felon, to work for her. I started out as a case manager. I worked the suicide crisis line 988 Dee Dee Hirsch for a year so I could understand the population of people who try to, have
Hmm.
suicidal ideation. uh, Learned that that's mostly a population with people struggling with addiction and mental health. So I knew I was in the right place. I was learning from that job. I was learning from school. And this owner gave me, she gave me an opportunity to work as a case manager. And then she promoted me once I went from an intern to an AMFT. And giving therapy was just so beautiful. And I'm just blessed that she knew everything about me, but saw something in me that said I could add value to her already existing great team. And I'll never forget that.
Wow. I absolutely love that. And it had to be somebody, you had to tell your story to be comfortable. She had to accept it. And then you're able to help people.
Mhm.
Um, that's the type of stuff that impacts lives is what you had to do to get to that point. But then somebody gave you that as an opportunity and you took it and you were ready for it. And I love it. John, what do you think after everything that you've been through? What do you think's your biggest takeaway through all of it?
That I wish My hope is to tour the world and to help men specifically. I want to be the male version of Brene Brown.
Mm,
Uh, I want to spread many messages. Some of them are to have the courage to ask for help, be vulnerable, be your authentic self, be transparent, um, surround yourself with quality people,
mhm.
and just do the next right thing and take personal accountability for your poor mistakes. Like, I'm a firm believer in taking personal accountability for all of my poor choices and owning it, and be emotionally present for your loved ones and start to love yourself.
Mm. Great takeaway. Great takeaway. If people want to get a hold of you, Jonathan, uh, what would be the best way to contact you?
They can follow me on my professional Instagram, which is at
The
the
Jonathan, yeah,
yeah, at the real Jonathan Schwartz.
the real Jonathan Schwartz, yeah, the real Jonathan Schwartz. Yeah, wow. Uh, It's good stuff. I want to also give a shout out to Homestead Financial, who lets me use this podcast room with the fancy cameras and stuff. If you got any home mortgage needs out there, Greg Aftie is your guy. He knows all that stuff. If you're looking for a book out there, I've got one. It's Nightmare Success, Loyalty, Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting, Finally Breaking Free. Got time? Leave me a review on Apple. It just really helps the show. Want to know more about what I'm doing? Go to BrentCassity.com. I spell it wrong. I spell it with a TY, not a DY. As I used to say to my people when I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Jonathan Schwartz, man, what a story and what a comeback. I love what you're doing, helping people, and it's got to make you feel all whole inside.
Thank you.
Nightmare Success, in and out.